Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast dedicated to the highs and lows of crushes. From their first to their worst, we're going to cover them all with a cascade of characters, including our guest today, one of the reasons the world knows golden retrievers can play any sport, Robert Vance, a seasoned writer and director who's behind one of the most beloved movie franchises and family entertainment that just hit Disney Plus in October, Air Bud. Robert, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I mean, Air Bud is an institution at this point. So I'm excited to talk to you about it and some other movies that you have done that my husband is like, you're too old to watch, but I think they're fun. So, and he was like, are you going to ask about that one? And I'm like, yes, I am. But before we get into that, where can we find you and Air Bud online other than Disney Plus, of course?
Well, it's on Amazon and, but basically in terms of the SVOD platforms or the subscription based, it's all on Disney Plus now for the first time.
That's crazy. I was like a little shocked by that. I was like,
yeah, I mean,
but
yeah. So I mean, like Air Bud is, on Disney Plus now. All 14 of the Air Bud movies and franchises, in that all the movies in the franchise are all there together now. So it's kind of exciting for us to kind of see it all together. From the beginning of Air Bud, the original Air Bud movie was made more than 25 years ago, stood the test of time, and I always say, ask somebody if they've heard of the Ain't No Rule Says a Dog Can't Play Basketball.
I was rewatching it last night and that part had me cracking up. So I have to know right off the bat, did you grow up in a home with a lot of animals?
With dogs, always, I always say that if a cat was the size of a golden retriever, it'd probably eat you. So I'm a big dog fan. Not that I'm not a fan of cats too. I just joke around with that, but we've always had dogs, and I grew up with collies actually, because of that was the time when Lassie was big, So, and now because of Air Bud, golden retrievers are the it, so. And anywhere in the world, everybody knows Air Bud and the breed golden retriever. Anywhere you go, is like the breed, So for families.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay if you don't like cats. Where my family was always pro dog. We had one. Well, we got a dog, and then we were all at school and work, and my mom's like, well, she needs a friend. So then we got a cat, and we just called it Kitty, and that was the dog's kind of pet, I guess. But many don't know that actually Buddy from Air Bud got their break on America's Funniest Home Videos and an appearance on David Letterman. And thinking back to that, it's kind of like a lightning in the bottle situation for a dog to go from a couple TV appearances to like a whole movie franchise, compared to today when like you have one viral moment and like, that dog or person can get millions. So do you ever think back to that, like how crazy the 90s were in that regard?
Well, I mean, there's two things there in your question, and is that first of all, I was the one that saw the dog on David Letterman's Stupid Pet Tricks, and I phoned up I was like, no way, and then I phoned because it was kind of a limited stage that the dog was playing in, and I got the name of the trainer, Kevin DeChico, and he came to our office, set up a regulation size hoop, and I looked at the basketball. I'm like, this is a real basketball, and he was literally playing with this dog out there, a game of basketball. It wasn't like, oh, he's going to spoon feed him a ball, and by the time he finished doing that for an hour, we had a crowd gathered around. I'm like, oh my God, this is something really special. And it was really something special. I didn't realize even when we were making the movie how special it was until the original Buddy was gone, and we had to get trainers, Hollywood trainers, to now work with us in the next movies and train other dogs. So what that one dog did would have taken 5 well-trained golden retrievers to do in all the subsequent movies per movie. So it was a pretty special animal, and pretty special, like he's a very special character. So Air Bud was real. He really did play basketball. There's no visual effects. He wasn't a Hollywood movie dog, as you said before. He'd just been on 2 things before we ran into him. and that's a special, never to be seen or again. Is my guess.
Did that kind of inspire the story, because he is just this average dog, he's like with the his original owner, then bad guy, and then you find out like, oh, he could do all these things, and then the bad guy comes back. Obviously, was that like the sort of the inspiration behind the script?
Yeah, and no, I don't think it was so much that as as I said, we didn't really realize how special he was even when we shot the movie for the first time. It was like one dog. Like nowadays, as I said, I've never used one dog, so we didn't realize even how special he was. We knew he was special, but we didn't know how special and how unique and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think, I think the story was really what's so great, and why that story resonates with so many people around the world is it's universal in a sense. It's a lonely kid who's lost his father, and a dog that was not in a kind of an abuse situation, and they come together and they save each other. And the fact so that's the underlying story about it, and it's really a triumph of the spirit movie, kind of like a Rudy or whatever. It's really about dreaming the possible dream in a lot of ways as well. So there's a lot around the movie that is the hook is, of course, a dog playing basketball, but the brilliance and the reason we talk about it today, 26 years later, is really because of how it resonates with people on a human level, dog human level, and a relationship level. Like everybody knows, that scene where Josh is telling Buddy to go away.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Everybody cried over that. I watch it today and I still tear up. And I don't know how many times I've seen it, but I've seen it a lot. I was, a kid, and people remember it as adults. It's very impactful. Everybody remembers the pudding cup scenes, like how the dog came out and how Josh, lured him out with the pudding cup. So they remember these kind of like beautiful moments that are cinematic and they're emotional, and the music's spectacular, and it's just like it just drives all these emotions that we all have as people, and that is really what makes that movie stick with you. The first time he shoots a basket and never been seen before, and capturing on film was super, obviously unique and interesting as a hook, and it's interesting to see for a first time. But that's really not why we're talking about it now. We're talking about it now because of the gravitas and the emotional connection of that movie.
For sure. I think a lot of, I am a 90s kid, and I think we always do these lists of, because we have a lot for kids movies, family movies, we had a lot of very like, not dark, but like very emotional scenes. This one with Josh and Buddy, you had Homeward Bound at the end. Like there's and they're always connected to animals. I don't know what you guys were doing in the 90s. You guys tortured our hearts, but it stuck with, that's the reason I think we're the last generation to be so nostalgic, is because people like you gave us those like things to hold on to. So I have to thank you for that, because I don't think kids today get that much, which we'll get to.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. I think, if you look at our subsequent series and movies, we always try to add we always try to make sure there's an emotional connection to the characters and reality, and authenticity, to use an overused word. But it is really what we're talking about when we say that. Like there's got to be a connection between what you're watching and why you're watching it. Otherwise, it's just candy. It's just like another, I pick on Marvel movies, but it's just another Marvel movie, or another one of those kind of movies where, they all are the same. Like you forget them as soon as you watch them, so it's not that they're bad movies, or there's just no emotional connection. So to build a franchise, I think what you're talking about when you grew up in the 90s, watching these movies in early 2000s, is that we were willing to go there. Nobody's telling us, oh, kids can't, this is too sensitive. Kids can't handle complex issues. Parents, we were trying to make movies that worked for the family. We weren't just saying, okay, it's only going to work for kids 5 to 11. We wanted, in all our shows, and from that day forward, we always wanted parents to watch the movies with their kids. They used to have that Disney Sunday night movie or whatever it is, before your time, I know.
Yes.
But that's kind of what we're at. And we're after that today. We think about it every day, all day long. Like, what is that emotional connection to the scene? And in amongst my team of people that are amazing, talented people that work with me, is that they probably heard all my mantras a million times and they're sick of them. But it's really gratifying when I hear them saying it and I overhear it, because those mantras are important. Like, I remember, everybody thinks Airbud was just a Disney movie. It wasn't a Disney movie originally. It was, Disney, in fact, Disney turned it down. Everybody turned it down. And so that movie got made as an independent movie for $4.5 million. And when I say everybody turned it down, everybody turned it down. And I remember one studio executive, I can't remember their name, saying to me, and we use this, and the reason I'm saying this is because we use this every day when we talk about our next things we want to do, is told me it was a stupid idea. And so if I begin every meeting when we're talking about what we're going to do next with, okay, what's our next stupid idea? Because all you do is make what everybody else is making, which is what's happening now in the world with all the algorithms and SVOD channels and everything else. Nobody takes a risk on anything. Nobody looks for the next, what I call stupid idea. I don't really mean it as stupid. I mean it as unique. Never been seen before, catches your attention immediately. Like, so what is it? What is it that we're outside of the box? That's what we're after. And that's, as a company, if you see what we do, that's exactly what we do. That's what we're always interested in.
Well, how soon after the initial Airbud did you guys realize there's something here? Let's continue this and maybe try to build out a franchise? Because it's not easy.
No, building the franchise, you're absolutely right. Like, look, it's really hard to make a movie like the original Airbud movie, period. No stop. It's like, it is lightning in a bottle. It is all these ingredients that come together that just happen to align perfectly, right? It's the Goldilocks scenario, or golden retriever scenario, as we say. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And then what typically happens, particularly back then, and still often happens, is the audience, goes with you on the next one, which is sort of the sequel, and they'll come back to watch that because they loved the first one. But after 2 or 3, or 2 or 3, I would say, the chances of it continuing with as a sequel, and then ultimately becoming a brand and something that really matters to multiple generations, that's very rare. And you look at how many sequels are generated, usually it's 1 or maybe 2, but we've made 14 Airbud and Airbud related movies just with the Airbud. So
you created this cinematic universe of sorts, because you have the most valuable primate, the Air Buddies, Pup Star, my personal favorite that my husband makes fun of me for, Russell Madness, which, side note, I need you to give Russell more. I really love that movie. I thought it was really cute. But Russell aside, has there ever been an idea, maybe stupid or not, where you were like, let's try other animals outside of dogs and primates that you just couldn't quite get a handle on? You're like, it's too much.
The answer that you saw, so you referenced the MVP franchise, most valuable primate franchise, which is one of my favorites. I mean, like that original Airbud, MVP movie, which was the chimpanzees, and we taught, I grew up playing hockey. I was a hockey player, and I played at a very high level, this is another really stupid idea, chimpanzee hockey, right? But to those people, especially, and I grew up in Canada, so those people that play hockey, around hockey, everybody knows the MVP franchise, most valuable franchise. Everybody knows about the chimp had a name, Rybczynski is on it. But everybody knows in the same way, not as big as Airbud, but everybody knows that franchise. And so I think we got a handle on it. It wasn't as big as Airbud, but I think, it just always depends. I don't think it's the animal as much as the movie. I think why you get such a connection with Airbud is everybody can identify with a golden retriever and a boy or a girl, and put themselves in that position. Because most people, especially, around the world, everybody has dogs. I mean, man's best friend's been around for thousands of years in connection with humans. So there's immediate human connection. Not everybody's had a chimpanzee, right? So it's just so ingrained in us. I mean, you grew up with a dog, and most people have grown up with a dog, or had a dog in the neighborhood or family. Like it's almost nobody doesn't have a connection to a dog, and in particular a golden retriever. And like they are the Goldilocks dog. They are the special, just right dog.
Yeah, I think anytime you see a golden retriever, you get, I think also what Air Bud did is every time you see one, it's just like Lassie, where you're gonna call every collie a Lassie. You're gonna call every golden retriever Air Bud, even if the dog can play or not, even if they're on the court. But Air Bud really did launch this style of movies to like new levels, and along the way, you've gotten to work with the likes of like legends like Don Knotts and Whoopi Goldberg, as well as people like Skylar Gisondo, who went on to Santa Clarita Diet and My Favorite Righteous Gemstones. But are there any actors that you would love to see in perhaps a new Air Bud movie or something you're working on that can help deliver that same tone as the original, that heart?
The answer is yes. So so I'm going to go backwards and I'm going to go forwards. So you're great at doing the multiple questions. I love that about your style. So the Don Knotts is my favorite comedian of all time. And if you really look at like whether it's a Jim Carrey or the comedic style of most comedians out there, their style is derived from Don Knotts. Don Knotts is like, it's kind of like you see this kind of branching out from this one comedian and his style. So Don Knotts was so unique. Working with Don Knotts was literally one of my favorite moments in life. And he was an older man, and he came in to play Deputy Sniffer, but oh my God, what a talent, B, professional, and great human being. So you mentioned my favorite guy of all time, Don Knotts, in terms of comedians. And then I've worked with all these sort of amazing kids. Like, one of the great things about making family movies is you kind of meet all these kids that you go, oh my God, this kid's going to be a huge star, like a McKenna Grace or like Kevin Zegers, who was a kid that was just, in a small town, or you mentioned a couple other as well. So, Emma Roberts, and amazing talent. We did movie Spy Mate. She was a kid. I mean, on and on and on. Mackenzie Vega. I can go. I just have to remember them all. Like Abby Breslin. Like it just goes on. And I see them later as adults, and I'm like, oh God, they're huge stars. But it's not surprising to me. So working with young kids, or like, and you see their authentic, crazy gifts. And I probably worked with, or cast in our original movies, the Air Buddies franchise, probably 80 of the, or not 80, but say 50 of the top kids now, adults out there now.
That's awesome.
One point. If you look up all the names, you'll see them all. And like, I always forget, and like, oh yeah, I forgot about. I haven't talked to Dominic Scott Kay for a while, or I haven't, and they just show up somewhere else, and I go, wow, that's, or I saw in New York, I was going through a hotel, and there's Emma there, and I said, hi Emma, and they always remember. They change, like, kids change, change tons, but adults just look basically the same or older. So. So it's always interesting when I run into them, because they remember me so well, or they come up to me and they don't look the same as they did when they were 7 years old or 8 years old or 12 years old. So that's kind of one of the fun things about doing this for a while.
Are there any like child stars now? Because I feel like we don't get, like, in the 90s, it was like child actors were huge, like Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Devon Sawa. And I feel like maybe because I'm older now, I'm not noticing. But are there any child actors now that maybe are on the radar of like casting directors or people behind the scenes that you're like, oh, that's who I want to work with?
Yeah. So our casting director is Lorna Johnson. She's the best. And she really, I can take zero credit for all the talent she's found for us. And really what makes me look like a great director is, or not great director, but a good director is when she hires great people, because all I can do is mess it up at that point. So Lorna is like you should talk to Lorna. She will tell you exactly who's next up and coming, where they're going, what's going on. and that it's such a, everybody thinks you make a movie or a series on your own, and the director gets all the credit, and they should get all the blame too. But it seems to be disproportionate because there's so many people that contribute to something being really good.
Well, shout out to all the casting directors. That's my favorite aspect of a movie, because you always hear about who could have been in a role or who could have got it, and you're like, that would have messed up the entire thing. Like, I always think one of my favorite shows is The Office, and I think of who could have been, and I'm like, it wouldn't have been as good. But now that Air Bud is on its like Disney Plus, and there could be some interest in reviving the franchise, either in more movies or a series for that matter. Or is there any plans for that, or any chatter in the background?
Yeah, no, and I'm so part of there. So our next step in terms of the relaunch or the launch of some new stuff for Air Bud or new shows and stuff, it was really getting it all together on Disney Plus. So to make sure it was all in one place. So I really, it's really would be really fun for people to start with the original Air Bud, go through the 5 Air Bud movies, and go into the 7 Air Buddies movies, which is the talk when we went into puppies and talking animals and stuff, and then into the Santa Paws franchise, because that all comes together. So that was kind of an important step for us to get that done, because what's happening now is that, like, millennials are really becoming parents themselves, right? So they have kids, and the parents of millennials are now grandparents, and so the timing is so right. It's become a multi-generational brand, Air Bud, and a beloved character now across generations. So our next step is we're doing an Air Bud Air Buddy, which is Air Bud as a puppy animated 3D animated series, and that's what you'll see next. So we're really wanting to introduce the Buddy character to little kids. I mean, I have grandkids now, so I've been doing this a while now, but I have soon to have 4, but I have 2 right now, and 2 more on the way. So I'm super excited to introduce, and I can see that they don't watch, when they're little, they're 3 years old, 4 years old, that they're not into live action yet. So they're really comfortable with animation. So it's kind of part of our thinking was like, hey, let's do a really cool animated series with everybody as a puppy. Like, what is his origins? Where did he come from? Where did he live? Of course, he lived in Fernfield, and of course, he had a pack of other puppies that were his friends. We call them the Dream Team. And so that's next. And then once that gets launched, I've been working on an Air Bud. We call it Air Bud Returns, because I don't want the title to give away what we're doing here. But we're doing a new Air Bud movie, and that'll come out I think a little after that. And we've been working on it for 5 years, and the timing is now right. So it's the whole thing around this was to come up with something an untold story, not another sequel, but something that was unique and fresh and had nod backs to the original movie and the original show, but actually had a uniqueness to it on its own, and in the same way that Air Bud is really set in that time that it was originally done. I want to make sure the next one is set in the time and the culture, and in a time and place of this era. So that's what we're doing, and I'm really excited about both these. Everybody says, "Oh, they're excited." I'm really excited. I've been waiting a long time. So I wrote the script, the Air Bud Return script. I've had it sitting with me for 3 years now, just waiting for the right opportunity. So so we do have things, so I would look at the Air Bud Returns movie as like same way, Creed reinvented, Sylvester Stallone and Rocky, but in a sort of unique, authentic, new way. But one of the advantages we have with the new Air Bud movie is that Air Bud was a dog. Air Bud as a movie is a real phenomenon, so we don't have to pretend like it never existed. We can make that part of the environment around the new movie. So we got a unique, and it also draws on a lot of experiences that I've had around other people telling me how impactful Air Bud was for them as a kid. And I mean people that had tough situations, right? And how that movie really the fact that it was a boy that was in this troubled situation, and he was able to come out of it with the help of a good friend, being his golden retriever. But that's so meaningful to so many people. Like LeBron James says he literally wore out the VHS tape as a kid. I was in China with, and we were, for the first time, Airbud was going to be on the Netflix of China called iQIYI. And I was like, we're really excited to have the first time. And I was talking to one of the executives. He said, no, I grew up with Airbud. Well, we never licensed it. In fact, he had a golden retriever. Mm-hmm. And then he took me to a park that he said, come with me this weekend. I'll show you. There's a park where all the people who have owned golden retrievers in Beijing show up every day, every 1 month. Once a month, they all show up and they all hang together. And it's all because of Airbud. So we're in China. I never thought the movie had ever been released. Obviously, it's been pirated. And here there was always this big fan base of people like your age that grew up with golden retrievers. His mom gave him one because he got A's. He was supposed to get, that was his prize to do well in school. So you forget that the impact, I was in Egypt. I was talking to a friend of ours in Egypt, and their kids all grew up there. But so you can go anywhere. You can go to the entire globe, and it's had that kind of impact in multiple cultures, multiple languages. Places that we don't even think that I didn't even know had been released. So that's a pretty gratifying thing, because you make family movies, you never get an Oscar. Not that I want one, but you never get an Oscar. But that's my Oscar. That's you kind of like, okay, you did good. You really did something special for people.
Well, I think that's good. I think family entertainment's important. We don't have enough of it nowadays. I think back in the day, my mom, she was an avid smoker, and she would not go to the movie theater because she couldn't smoke in it. It had to be a good enough movie. I mean, now that streaming, she just sits at home. But I think family content's really important. But I asked you about what's coming, because not too long ago, I wrote an article about movie franchises that just won't quit. And I had to include Airbud because, again, you created not only those, but it spawned so many other movies. But when this all began back in the late 90s, did you ever imagine that over 2 decades later, you'd still be creating this type of animal-based, family-friendly content?
The answer is yes. And I'll tell you why. So before we made Airbud, I'd made 22 movies. And probably in that time, we were an independent filmmaker. So in that day, we're making action, erotic thrillers, all sorts of gangster movies. Before Pulp Fiction came out, we had a movie called Bullet for Heart, which did really, really well. And we had these franchise. We had all these movies that we'd done, my brother and I, and we came out of the movie theater after Bulletproof Heart, which was, I think, Rolling Stone magazine made it one of the top picks for that year, independent movies. And we were kind of all proud of ourselves. And my mom was there, and she said, I said, "What do you think, Mom?" And she goes, because it was kind of a violent movie. And my mom didn't like violent movies. She said, is that what you guys are going to do with this powerful medium that you're blessed to put content? Why don't you make a family movie? And I remember going, because everybody wants their mom to be proud of them. But it was literally 3 months later that I saw David Letterman's Stupid Pet Tricks. And after we made Airbud, and I could see the joy, just the absolute joy. It wasn't like, oh, that was a cool movie, or that was hip, or you the cool guys, or whatever stuff. It was like, with kids and families and all these articles, I was like, the truth is that I probably wouldn't be in the movie business or the series business or any of the entertainment business if I wasn't making family movies. I wouldn't be in it anymore. I wouldn't have been in it a long time ago, because I was getting to the point where it wasn't feeding my soul. There was no mission statement for me personally in it. But when I found that, I was just like, that's why I've been so dogged, is that you use that term, dogged in my determination to not only make more Airbud, but to make great family movies for people. It's why I get up in the morning. And I know, I'm at my age now, it's like, that's got to be another reason, I made I don't even know, 50 movies, somewhere around 50 movies, and you know, four or five series, you know, and I get excited. I'm into work every day, enjoying myself. I love all the talent around me, but it really there has to be something besides just making money. I mean, everybody needs it. We understand that, and everybody needs to feed their families and take care of themselves. But once you get past that, unless you're just somebody who just wants money for money's sake, there's got to be something else. There's got to be some spiritual reason for why you're here, and that's why. So to answer your question, I went on a little bit off on a tangent, but to answer your question, I knew once I saw Airbud, I knew what the impact it was. This is what that was meant to do, and this is what I'm gonna do. And I didn't know how long it would last, but I knew I was gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, again, just thank you for the family content. I think that's something that is lacking today, especially in theaters. We'll get it streaming, but on streaming, you mentioned algorithms earlier. If like you don't have children like myself, you're probably not going to get to see some of the movies that are out there. I'm probably just going to see things that Steve Carell and John Krasinski are in because I rewatched The Office over and over again. So why do you think there is this lack of like family content in theaters other than Marvel, which not all kids want to go see Marvel movies. Like I wasn't into superheroes as a kid. I like dogs and cats. That's why I watched Homeward Bound on repeat and things like Airbud.
Yeah, I think that. So I think that look, if you're going to a buffet and all there is Chinese food, you're just going to eat Chinese food all the time, right? You're getting sick of Chinese food. So the buffet, which I would call the where we're basically being fed the same diet. So if you go to Netflix, what's Netflix focusing on? Netflix is focusing on the same kind of movies as HBO is, or Max, and the same one. So everybody's focused on the same kind of movies because there is a herd mentality in our business, and the herd mentality is basically saying, if a movie like Ghost is successful on Netflix, we're going to do 10 more of them. And that's how executives make their decisions, because there's very few people in the business that are creatively are given kudos for trying and it doesn't work. So you're always safe to do more of the same until more of the same doesn't work. And then along comes Barbie. Right?
Yay! Yes.
Yeah, like who said, okay, we'll make another Barbie movie? Or we'll make because people forget that Barbie movies have been out there as animated movies, and because we outperformed them every year on the Buddies, but they made like 16 or 19 Barbie movies, animated movies, and then so it was kind of like when I first heard that they're making a Barbie movie, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I thought it was going to be, but I didn't think it was going to be a huge risk because I understand brands and franchises and I just said it to my daughters, like, hey, my wife, would you go see a Barbie movie? Absolutely. Yeah. And so my point is that wasn't made by streamers. That wasn't made by, because they would have looked at the algorithm and gone, it's never going to work. So the more we're data rather than creatively dependent, the more we're all going to be eating the same food at the same salad bar or the same buffet. So what I would say is, because family films don't win Academy Awards, and they just don't, even if they're the greatest family films ever, what happens is that from an executive's point of view, if your job is to keep your job, you don't really make those kind of decisions. And so it's actually become harder and harder to make a movie like Airbud. It's almost become, and we haven't given up. We're still doing it. We had a bunch of series on Netflix, a bunch of shows on Netflix, but you don't get the same push, right? Because what happens is that if it falls off of the hot for now, thing, and everybody forgets Airbud was successful right off. It did about 25 million at the box office, which isn't huge at the time, but in the US. But what really made it successful is that it became the movie that, at the time when it was VHS tapes, that everybody had to have at their kids' party, right? And so, and then it was the VHS business, and it built and built and built and built and built. and that led to 5. But what was even more successful was the Buddies franchise, and the Buddies franchise was even bigger than the Air Bud franchise because it had DVDs behind it, and we never took one of them theatrical. So you need to, families need to be able to discover what's out there, and if you're just kind of things are being thrown at you all, for 10 minutes and then you don't hear about it, then moms and dads are busy, and something can't be out there for a week and then disappear. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of reasons, but it really is the homogenization. SVOD has created it had the promise of creating sort of a more diverse environment for filmmakers, but it's really become a homogenized platforms, so that's the reason. Will it change? I don't know, but we're going to keep making family movies, and that's what we're all about. And so
thank you for taking a chance on what you would call a stupid idea. I don't think it was stupid at all, because Air Bud, it's got all these sequels, again, a cinematic universe all its own, and now it's on Disney Plus. But 20, 30 years from now, what do you hope is Air Bud and Buddy's legacy in film and family entertainment?
Well, I think that the legacy is already there. Mm-hmm. The legacy is you're and you're, so I don't know how old you are, but you're in the millennial. You're a millennial, or you're a Gen Z?
Yeah, millennial.
So if you're a millennial, you grew up with Air Bud. If you're a Gen Z, you grew up with Air Buddies franchise, and we want the next generation to grow up with the Air Buddy animated series, and then go start watching it. So I hope the legacy is really just this franchise that we created, that we created, that we always tried to innovate, be current, provide positive messaging, and really do the justice to the original character, Air Bud, which was a real dog. And that dog was special, and that would, I know it sounds a legacy of a dog, but Air Bud is our CIO, our chief investment officer at this company. And we always say, one of the things I say, well, what would Air Bud say? We want to be the golden retriever that Air Bud was in making these family movies. So there's a lot of things that drive us, but the legacy will be the films themselves. It won't be accolades, it won't be awards, it won't be, it'll be, and I'll give you an example. So here's my legacy, okay, right now, because it exists today. I was talking to somebody your age who grew up in a foster home, and he was 10, 12 years old, and he told me that Air Bud basically saved his life. He had a little VHS player, combo player, VHS with a little TV in his tiny little room, and he had a pretty sad existence, not a nice existence, and he would put in, every time he felt sad, he'd put in the tape and watch the movie, or watch a scene in the movie, and that got him through. And he's a very successful person. He hasn't given me his name to put out there. I know who he is because we talked. Or like Matt Scott, who is a 3-time Paralympic basketball player, was born, with spinal bifida, so he never walked. And part of his reason for playing basketball is watching the Air Bud movie. Even though he was a kid in a wheelchair, he still thought that was all very possible. So these are the things that matter to me. And I think our legacy, we're kind of living it, And when people like yourself just keep adding a voice and amplifying, if we did nothing else, I think any promise that I would have wanted has already been fulfilled. Now I just want to do more of it.
Well, you're gonna make me cry with these stories. But yeah, I think that's it. I think the accolades, it'd be cool to win an Oscar. Who wouldn't want? But I think, I always tell my husband, I think it's cooler to create something in pop culture that is everlasting instead of something that was cool for 5 minutes and got you an award. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, things like that are just going to go on long after I am here. And I think Air Bud is one of those things. So thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. And I think that you said something earlier is kids in particular now are everything gets pushed out at them so quickly, right? Mm-hmm. They don't get a chance to think, whether it's a clip on YouTube, or they're watching something on, on social media, everything's like pushed at them with these algorithms. And it's not going back. I'm not saying I can change it, but what I can do is provide another opportunity, you sit down with your family or your friends and you just really watch something that really is meaningful and relaxing, and really it draws you in, and it makes you feel good about yourself, your life, your home, your environment, your community. Those are the things that I think we can still do that can't be replicated on social media.
Yeah, and something that captures their attention enough to not be on their phone during it as well. I think is a big deal with family entertainment.
Absolutely. And that's because people don't make, as I said at the top, we're making family movies. We're not making dog movies. We're not making kid movies. We're making family movies. And that can take a lot of different forms. Families take lots of different forms. But that's really what that we're aiming to. We're aiming to make a movie that you're going to sit down with your niece or your nephew, and you're going to enjoy it just as much, and see the joy in their eyes, and feel the same things that you felt when you saw Air Bud as a kid.
Yes. Well, Robert, that's all I have for you. But I do want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to talk to me about Air Bud, the icon, the legend that he is, and the movies that he spawned. And everyone, you can find all of Robert's information below, and the Air Bud movies now on Disney+. But until next time, as always, keep crushing it. Crushgasm is part of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network, alongside some other pretty cool shows, including An Evening at the Movies, Crime Rewind, Literature Reapers, Love is Black, Masturbators, Men Are the Prize, and The Sip List. You can find all of us and more over at idnmtrpodcastnetwork.com.